right, do burst it. All right, rip it now.
Hey guys, Derek Giddings here. Do you have an HK93, an HK33, or an HK53? Well, if you do, stand by and let's make sure you have the right buffer or buffers installed on your system so you don't get roller dents. Stay tuned. All right. Here on the table is a beautiful HK93 that I just recently sold from my collection. It's got the 178 barrel. The new owner is lucky. He's going to have a beautiful gun, and I hope he enjoys it. Before it goes, I wanted to take this opportunity to show you some important things you need to know about the buffers that are required on the 90 series 5.56 guns. If you've got, well, let's back up. If you've got an HK93, you never know at this stage of the game. There's so many sellers out there that have guns that have changed hands multiple times and parts have been swapped out, and God only knows what you've got. But if you've got a factory gun, HK93, what you'll have is a semi-auto bolt carrier group that looks like this. Semi-auto, meaning that it's milled out right there, so it can't trip a sear trip on a full auto pack, so that won't work. It'll ride right over it. But what you'll notice is it's flat on the back. That's the firing pin, but it's flat. There's nothing. So there's no buffer. That's normal. That's what's shipped. And the stocks, if you have an A2 or an A3, you'll see a buffer that's in the stock that looks like that, a little end plate piece with a little nub. That's a buffer. Or if you have an A3 retractable stock, here's an aftermarket one just to show you for details. Same thing, it's got a buffer, okay? That would compare to a standard MP5, say subgun stock like that, that's got no buffer. What you need to know is if you're running the 90 series 5.56 guns, you have to have at least one buffer. 2 buffers is fine. So the buffer can come from the stock, like I showed you here, or it could come from some of the bolt carrier groups that exist. So there's a buffer. See that nub on the back? Let's put them both side by side. Here's the one that comes standard on a semi-auto gun. Okay, and here's the one that you might see that were typically common in some of the contract HK33s. And it has a buffer on the bolt carrier, whereas this one does not. And you'll see standard factory HK33 full auto bolt carriers with no buffer as well. But it's important that if you run the system, you have to have at least one buffer. Otherwise, you risk getting dents in the back of your receiver group, and you don't want that. So be sure you have at least one buffer. And the buffer, again, to recap, can be on your bolt carrier. It can be in your stock, or you can have both. You just have to have at least one. Questions will pop up. Sometimes you'll see converted subgun stocks, A2 stocks, will have a buffer, whether it's like a choke plastic buffer like this, or a big, some of them have these round plates that were installed on some of the Malaysian contract 33s. So you'll end up seeing a plastic A2 stock like this that doesn't have the metal end cap like you'll see here. But some of them may have a round disc installed to provide a buffer. Is that okay? It's okay. I would just call that less than ideal. That really wasn't the HK way of doing it. So if you've got a beautiful 93, don't go this route. Just put that to the side. Invest in and get a proper A2 with the metal end plate and the correct buffer, or an A3 that has the correct buffer, or go ahead, if you can find it, you can run a full auto bolt carrier in a semi-auto gun with no problems. But if you find one of these contract bolt carriers that has the buffer, just grab it, throw it in your gun, double check your bolt gap before you run the gun after you make any changes. You'll be good to go. So 1 buffer, a must. 2 buffers, fine. Got to have 1 buffer. Don't ruin a beautiful gun like this. You won't ruin it, but don't get dents. Don't put dents in it. They can be fixed, but just don't do it. Anyway, hope this helps.